Oh boy. Qatar review time. An exciting Grand Prix, maybe not, but an exciting championship still very much alive going into Abu Dhabi. Lando Norris down in P4, Max Verstappen taking the win, Oscar Piastri in second, Sam, all three drivers still in with a shot.
Did you ever think that we get to Abu Dhabi? It'll be 7 wings for Max, 7 wings for Lando, 7 wings for Oscar. You saw it coming, did you then? Yeah, sure you did. You bloody little liar, you little rascal. Why didn't? This is sensational. Sorry, Lando fans. Little part of me was absolutely gutting when Kimi Antonelli ran wide because I want it to be that close in Abu Dhabi. I just want it to all come to a head. I was butterflies the whole way through. Qatar, I didn't know you can make me feel such a way, but you did. This one time only. I was very excited. Harry, excited, my friend? Having a good time?
I enjoyed that, and I hate to admit it. McLaren, you're a bunch of idiots, but also thank you so much, because that would have been an absolute howler if they hadn't not stopped under the safety car. So
it still was a howler. There still was a lot of howling.
No, that's what I mean. But it was a little bit quieter, like ooh, not like oh,
like a bad ghost on Halloween, rather than a wolf at the moon.
Correct, exactly correct. So thank you for that, McLaren. I guess thank you for being stupid in that respect, because it made it something to watch.
I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row where McLaren have been stupid in one way or another. First the disqualification, now this. And if it weren't for either of them, if they could have had one out of the two of them, they'd still probably be all right, and this championship would be done and dusted. As it stands, though, championship absolutely not done and dusted. Lando Norris still with the advantage, the first driver over 400 points on 408. Max Verstappen now 12 points back. Oscar Piastri 16 points back. So leaves a very interesting situation. It's still alive for Lando Norris to finish third in the Grand Prix at Abu Dhabi and come away with the championship, regardless of what happens to Verstappen and Piastri. But Sam, some of that buffer has now gone. Let's talk about how it happened, because everyone's talking about that lap 7 safety car, the decision for nearly every single driver on the grid to come into the pits, apart from the two leaders of this race, Piastri in first, Norris in second. In hindsight, not a great move.
I want everyone to join us, please, in our prayer circle to thank Pierre Gasly and Nico Hulkenberg for spicing up the Qatari Grand Prix. So thank you to you, brilliant, gorgeous, wonderful men. That was a really interesting choice. And this is, again, where McLaren, right? Like, where's the thought process? Why are you playing this papa rules now? It's too fair. And by being too fair, you are screwing over both of your drivers simultaneously. Let them make a choice for themselves. It was clear that Piastri or Norris could have come in that time, got the job done, come out at least behind Max Verstappen, but on the same strategy on the track where they could have fought wheel to wheel for at least one of them to go and win. I can't lie. I was absolutely gutted for Piastri. He ran this weekend. He was sensational through sprint quali, sprint race, through actual quali, and then up to that point and after that point. And McLaren, who've once again fumbled the bag. It's just so bad. It's so reactive, not proactive. You have such an ability to think on your feet. And when I said this in our preview for the weekend, because they've got two drivers to think about, I think it weirdly costs them. Max Verstappen could just go out all in, full risk, throw everything at the wall, hope something sticks. And it did. They threw something at the wall and it stuck, and he comes away with the full points. I'm gutting for Piastri, and Lando Norris must be walking away from the last few weekends going, oh, I'm not nervous, but I'm a little bit shaky. It is getting a little bit close.
McLaren throw this one away, Harry?
100% they've thrown this away. Firstly, F1 script writers, I'd like to thank you. Stefano Domenicali, obviously our fearless leader. Thank you for bringing those in.
It's all fake. It is a script. Like, this isn't...
Because the safety car came at the optimum, like it had to come on lap 7 and no sooner, because the 25 laps wouldn't have worked out. So thank you to them. But yeah, McLaren fumbled the bag here completely. And not that I want to be smug about this, but I think we have correctly criticized McLaren for their papaya rules, fair racing nonsense during this course of the season. And it's come back to bite them, because Andrea Stella came onto Sky after the race, before we started recording this, to say that the reason they didn't pit under the safety car, both cars, is they didn't want to stack Norris, because that basically means it would have been unfair on Norris. well, congrats, Andrea. You lost the race because of it. And it's this stupid, it has to be fair for both of them. Exactly fair for both of them has come back to bite them. And, Piastri has lost a race win. Norris has lost a potential championship win today, but also has lost a big chunk of his lead. And it's now only 12 points, as you say. So
the worst part is if Piastri have won, it would have been 10 points gap back to Lando Norris. So they've cost us, the viewer, the most important part of all of this. Late braking has been cost a juicy finale.
We are suing.
We're
suing McLaren, correct, Ben?
Zach Brown, I'll see you. No, I won't.
That won't go well.
No.
Well done for not finishing that sentence.
I will see you at the end of the season when you come on to the podcast. It's a dear friend of ours, I'm sure. You cost us the juiciness, and I want the juiciness, and you throwing it away. The grape is no juice.
No juice grape.
It's a raisin. It's a raisin. And I wanted the juice.
Look, McLaren, it was bound to happen at some point, but their cautiousness, their rules of racing, rules of engagement have cost them a race win and an opportunity to wrap this title up once and for all. So good effort, guys.
No doubt whatsoever, because Piastri quite comfortably had the pace to win this Grand Prix. The fact that he's only finished, under 10 seconds behind Max Verstappen at the flag, even if Verstappen is managing in that final stint, Piastri has the pace to win this Grand Prix. I have very little doubt about that. And what you said, Harry, about Andrea Stella's comments on Sky immediately after the Grand Prix, that's maybe what's annoyed me the most about this, because he's saying how they can't double stack and it's like they have to treat their drivers exactly the same way. Even if they are sending one of their drivers off a cliff, the other one therefore has to follow the first driver off that cliff. And it really annoys me because this could have been easily managed behind the scenes before this was even a situation in the Grand Prix. Piastri and Norris are not stupid. They know that the other driver is as passionate about winning this championship as they are. They have had one goal, and that is to be a Formula One world champion for many, many years. And they respect that each of the other also has that objective. You can just easily manage this by saying before the Grand Prix, before the last few Grand Prix, if Piastri is leading the way, or if Norris is leading the way, they get the first call on pit stops. That's always how it's been. This situation could have easily been managed to say, look, Oscar, we have an opportunity to box here. If we don't take that opportunity, it will go to Lando Norris. Like, he will then have the opportunity to box if we don't. And then Oscar Piastri can, in the car, with some data from his engineer, make that call. If he wants to risk it and stay out, then he knows Norris is going to be the one to pit instead of him. And equally, he can then stop, and Lando Norris can't then turn around and complain and say, well, I couldn't stop because he was already there. Yeah, if you qualified ahead of him, you'd have had the opportunity instead. It's such an easy position to manage. And McLaren,
consequences for your actions.
They've messed it up.
Yeah, it is pure Lord Farquaad, where he says, some of you may die. That's a risk I'm willing to take. And that is Stella right now. Either you all die or we all live. And currently, McLaren, you are living literally by the sword and dying by the sword. And Max Verstappen is the sword. So enjoy that. You lost again. Again!
Yeah, and that proper wound me up, that comment, because I just think you could really, as adults, just manage this situation quite efficiently. And instead, Max Verstappen takes over Oscar Piastri in second in the championship and has a very realistic chance of being world champ.
Do you know what was really telling as well about this call is that Sky had James Vowles on the pit wall this weekend, obviously not team principal for Williams, but formerly strategist for Mercedes. And they were like, oh, James, would you brought your drivers in if you were at McLaren? He's like, yeah, I would have done, actually.
Probably at least one of them.
Because the entire grid came in. Look, it was just McLaren that didn't come in the pits. I know Ocon didn't, but Ocon, I don't know what they were doing with Ocon, to be honest, so who cares?
You must stay out for as long as humanly possible. It's the rules. It's all the rules, okay? That's a separate story that's going into Netflix.
Do the opposite of everyone, but also copy them, sure. But yeah, it just is so telling that they were the only team that literally didn't stop. They were the only ones on this alternate strategy.
It was a gift. It was an absolute gift for McLaren, because when we were going into this race weekend, anyone who knows anything about F1 strategy was fixated on lap 7 and lap 32 because essentially that was the earliest you could come into the pit stops in order to then still do a two-stop strategy with that 25-lap maximum on a set of tyres. So all the strategies would have been fixated on lap 7, lap 32. And an absolute gift, because McLaren, who had the fastest car, they were first and second comfortably, didn't have to think. They just had to go into the pits as soon as that safety car comes out, and then the rest of the race is by the numbers. Like, they don't have to think about strategy. They just have to go into the pits again on lap 32. And that's job done. Instead, they've somehow managed to mess this up. I give them credit for one reason, which is, imagine if McLaren did pit both drivers. I don't want that version of this Grand Prix, because that would have been a contender for worst Grand Prix of all time if it weren't for McLaren. It still, I don't think, was a very good race, but if McLaren decided to do what everyone else did, I don't think we'd have got any action.
No, from a viewer point of view, we have all been asleep. You can wake up on lap 57 and go, oh, how'd you have a puncture? Ah, that must be the most exciting part of the race for the entire day. It was that boring.
It was still top 5.
What? Maybe top 3, mate. Genuinely, maybe top 3. I'll tell you what, though. Oscar Piastri, he seems so defeated. The fact that he was first in Zandvoort and further on, and now is third, the word speechless over his post-race radio. The way he sprayed, I've never seen a man spray champagne more miserably in my life. You know, he's up
rightfully
there.
so.
Woo, yeah, champagne. Honestly, miserable.
I think he did quite well to rein it in, to be honest, when he was being interviewed by Martin Brundle. Like, you could tell there was a lot more he wanted to say, Harry, and he decided not to.
Yeah, that's probably the closest we've got to an Oscar Piastri meltdown, isn't it? Which in itself wasn't that scary, but he was seething, and quite rightly so, because his only opportunity was I know he's still in the hunt as we go into the last weekend of the year, but his opportunity to try and claw this back was to win both the races we had here this weekend. He did the sprint, and he was probably looking on course to do the double with the Grand Prix as well, if they had pit him when they literally pit the entire field, because they'd have all been on the same strategy. And yes, it would have been the world's worst Grand Prix. I know it was up there, but it would have truly been the worst. But Oscar Piastri would have taken that win, so he is quite rightly cheesed off, I think is probably the expression.
I might be stealing moment of the race submissions by saying this, but maybe the icing on the cake from Red Bull's side was sending Hannah Schmitz up to the podium, of course, leading the strategic call after this race. And that leads us on to Max Verstappen, because, Sam, even though McLaren might have handed this race to Verstappen, he still had to take it. And he was a long way clear of anyone who wasn't the two McLarens.
That little moment, putting Hannah Schmitz, the queen of strategy, on that podium when they have really mucked up their strategy on the other side of this fight. Oh, good Lord, that is perfection. That is cinema, as the meme displays. He was good, Max Verstappen. I don't think the car was there. Yeah, end of point. He was good. And that's the podcast. Thanks for listening. The way he got the start done was spectacular. The launch that he got off the line to get alongside Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri and him played that like a beautiful, beautiful pair. The way that Piastri clearly boxes in Norris, so he can't get into the inside properly, and then Verstappen is able to go all the way around the outside. No problem at all. Thank you very much. I'll take second place. And because of the nature of this racetrack, once the overtake is done, you basically can't ever get close enough to overtake ever again. So it's fine. That's it. Race done. And at that point, for Lando Norris, went, okay, excuse me, I'm going to die.
No.
Qatar has killed me.
I like that's the reaction. A little joke is like, I'm going to die. I'm out.
Peace.
Don't want to worry, everyone. Might be dead.
Right. Anyway, as I was saying, at that point, Lando Norris is in third place. So he's thinking, all right, that has not gone well, but in third place, I can still win this title in the next race, right? Come third again, no problem. Hunky-dory, I'm going to walk home world champion. And then it just gets worse, because he isn't able to get the gap the second time around to pull away from the likes of Carlos Sainz and Antonelli. It was close enough with Fernando Alonso to begin with. You think, oh, he's got away with it once. Is he getting away with it twice? No, sir. He's got to get past two more drivers to get back to this coveted third position that he needs. Lando's going to be breathing a sigh of relief that Kimi Antonelli has run wide. That must have been the best moment of his whole season, to watch that Mercedes have a little bum wiggle out of the corner and drift off to one side, and he gets through for P4, because those 2 points got to be so precious for him walking into the final race of the season with that ever so slightly larger gap. Now he can finish in third comfortably, whereas before it was 10 points. And at that point, he's got to be finishing well into the podium, hopefully trying to win that Grand Prix. Now he can be a little calm, a little bit more restrained. So not a good weekend at all for Lando Norris. I think he gets a little lucky right at the end of it.
I think we mentioned this, Harry, on the review we did yesterday, that Norris didn't seem to lack pace this weekend, but seemed to lack consistency, seemed to lack that feel. And it always felt like he was maybe a corner away from something going not horribly wrong, but just something slightly wrong. He didn't seem to have that lap-on-lap consistency that his teammate had.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It just felt like there were a few, I don't even want to say errors, to be honest, but there were just a few moments this weekend. Obviously not getting the lap in qualifying. The start today, there was at some point during the race, he had a mistake, whether he got any damage on the curb. TBC on that one. If it did, it was minimal. But it never all quite came together in the same way that it did for Piastri, which is probably why Piastri was so frustrated, because I don't think he did anything wrong at all this weekend. But for Norris, it just wasn't a smooth weekend. And I think it's easy to say, the pressure's getting to him again, but it is these moments that can swing a world championship, and we don't blame the drivers at all for the decision on the strategy here. But when you have made these mistakes, as you said, Ben, earlier, if Norris had qualified better, then this issue doesn't necessarily exist. But when these sorts of errors, and then something like the McLaren strategy decision comes along, it compounds things. So I think he'll look back and be frustrated with his own performance this weekend. It was in no way terrible at all, but it just it wasn't quite the momentum we've seen from Norris of late.
I feel like it was Piastri's best performance versus his teammate in a very long time. Like, you have to go back to, I think, at least Zandvoort, and maybe even further back than that.
Further back for me, yeah.
Entirely possible. There haven't been that many recent occasions where Piastri seems to have had that advantage. And Norris, I don't want to say he got lucky, but he got the better of the first 2 pit stops that McLaren did. He was the one that got that 2.2 second, which was absolutely vital, because if that is, I think, 3 seconds, he is having to overtake a couple of cars, which he might well have done at that point in the Grand Prix. But we saw later on in this race that McLaren wasn't particularly suited in a straight line to making overtakes. Even with that in mind, Piastri gets the overtake done quite clinically on Kimi Antonelli when he needed to. Norris struggled a lot more than, of course, Piastri did. So, it never seemed like he was quite comfortable with the car. But equally, that move I don't even know if we call it a move, that position he gained on Antonelli late on, that is, as you said earlier, Sam, a really important couple of points, because now he can stick to that third place finish, don't need to worry what anyone else does. And that's still good enough to win this championship, but it's a lot less comfortable than what it was.
With Norris having like a target to actually hit now to win the title, it's almost like he's got his mindset on hitting the target rather than just winning the Grand Prix. And there are a couple of instances in this race where I think his own mistakes have cost him. The start wasn't particularly good enough. He was bailed out for a good pit stop by having poorer pace to get away from the likes of the Alonso train. And then later on in the Grand Prix, where he runs wide and causes himself damage to the car due to the gravel and the off track, and damages his pace because of this. All of these things are self-inflicted. And he's been bailed out a couple of times now, bailed out by the pit stop from his team and bailed out again by Kimi Antonelli running wide, because I don't think he's getting past any other way if Kimi Antonelli manages to just bring it home the way he was the previous lap. So the fact that he's still got the lead he does going into Abu Dhabi, there's a little bit of luck at play for him, I think.
Maybe a little. I was fine with Norris not being more aggressive with Antonelli, though, because I know that commentary were quite adamant that he needs to get by for this champ. He needs those couple of points. that reeks of desperation if he is desperate to make that move. Like a DNF is still going to cost him way more than finishing fifth would have done.
Imagine the crash. If Antonelli had crashed into him, God, that would have been devastating for him.
He's still in the driver's seat, so to speak, going into Abu Dhabi. So I can understand why he was a bit resistant to make that lunge up the inside of Antonelli in the same way that Piastri would. But very exciting as we get to Abu Dhabi. A preview, we're obviously going to have a preview midweek. Those three drivers, Norris, Verstappen and Piastri, going to be at the forefront of that. We've discussed the championship contenders, but let's discuss a driver that has got his second podium of the season, that of course being Carlos Sainz. Picked up a podium not that long ago at Baku, and he becomes the first driver in just over 10 years, exactly 10 years, to get multiple podiums in the same season at Williams. Of course, his first ever season with the team. Sam, Carlos Sainz, we mentioned this on the qualifying and sprint review yesterday. He seems to have really come into his own.
He's stepped up. And once again, the smooth operator. That team, did they bless the reins down in the pit lane? Because that man, as the famous lyrics go by Toto, that man got the perfect pit stop. They fed him out into such a brilliant little gap that meant that he was able to execute the pit strategy so well. Starts seventh, moves up to third place. Benefits, of course, as well from the pace being delivered consistently, and then Lando Norris falling behind him, being held up, of course, by Kimi Antonelli behind, means he's not challenged. But he is just running with it. He's so consistent. He's so comfortable with the car now. He's out driving Alex Albon every single weekend. And I believe he's now ninth in the Drivers' Championship and only, I think, 9 points behind Alex Albon in the championship as well.
Wouldn't have said that a few months ago.
Well, not at summer break, no chance. I've gone, no way you're getting close to him. He's well and truly done you. But now they're right by each other. Did we all put Carlos Sainz in teammate wars?
Funnily enough, I was looking at Teammate Wars results the other day, getting ready for the end of season review that we'll have. I think we all went with the same driver. I think we all went with Sainz, but I could be wrong.
Gosh darn it. I was hoping for maybe one of us would get a sneaky little point there. But fair play to you, Carlos Sainz, because he's pulled it back out, seemingly out of nowhere. He went through a real rut in the mid part of the season, and it looked like he was really struggling to get to grips where his teammate, Albon, was thriving regularly in the points, regularly getting top 5 finishes in the early part of this season. And now it's Sainz who's got the 2 podiums. He's the first, as you said, for a decade to pick up that great a result twice in one season.
Harry, I think with Carlos Sainz in this Grand Prix, I know he gets that brilliant pit stop that sees him ahead of the Mercedes and the rest of his midfield rivals. There was still probably a part of Williams and maybe anyone watching that was thinking, P4's on the cards here. I know McLaren are on a different strategy. They've probably just got the pace to finish second and third. Verstappen's going to be first and we'll settle for fourth. But it sounded like in the car, Carlos Sainz, he's a big brain guy sometimes, is Carlos Sainz. And I think he knew P3 was still on the cards.
Yeah, I was going to make this exact point. And again, this is exactly why James Vowles and Williams signed Carlos Sainz here, because we saw this quite a lot whilst he was at Ferrari and needed, given
yes.
Ferrari. But he's doing a lot of the driving of strategy and of the way that he goes about racing from the car. Sorry, when I say driving, I mean leading, not physically driving. He's obviously driving the car. But this was a superb race from him. And I think as soon as he clocked that Norris had come out behind him and Antonelli, he knew it was game on for that podium. And there were a couple of messages from him on the radio saying, because obviously he was in some sort of management mode towards the end to guarantee that P4, which I assume that's what Williams were asking him to do. But yeah, as soon as Norris came up behind him, he clocked that actually if he pushed on here, he was going to get a P3. So a superb effort from him. Obviously the bit of damage he picked up on the curb at some point towards the end of the race did hamper his progress. But to be honest, and he ended up doing what I thought he should have done anyway by backing up Antonelli. I think that didn't really hamper him too much. Norris didn't clearly have the pace to get past Antonelli without the mistake from Kimi. And Sainz had enough in hand. So very well managed, very well executed. And yeah, what a second half of the season he has had versus the first. So yeah, congrats to him. And I mean, when Lewis Hamilton was signed at the beginning of 2024, would you have bet on that one? 2-0 going into the final round on podiums? Not sure I would have done.
That's right. He can still pull it back.
But,
You know what? Ferrari probably think he can.
Yeah, they probably do. They probably think if he gets second and then Leclerc gets third, we could give him both the podiums. So
that's yours, Lewis. Yeah,
that's not how it works.
If it was how it worked, I think McLaren would cook up something, but there we go.
I am sorry, this is actually not even relevant to the race. I just saw a clip on social media earlier, which I forgot to bring up because we had the discussion about sprint and qualifying. During qualifying, when Hamilton came back in to get his tyres changed between his first and second run, they forgot he was out there. All the jacks were just out in the pit lane, and he just had to stop and wait for them to clear out the box so he could get back into the box. Just brilliant. They need a communications director in fast.
And it's Ricky.
Lewis Hamilton literally explodes.
Oh, yeah. That tough day for Ferrari. But not a tough day for Williams. And I think I can actually hear James Vowles chuckling from here about his masterminding of the situation. Like, how has he managed to get Sainz and Albon going into next season? That is a great bit of business that he's getting vindicated for that week on week, because Albon had the great start to the year. Carlos Sainz is having this great second half of the season, and Sainz absolutely deserved that podium. This was all about track position and it was all about management, but as proven by Antonelli, by Hadjar, I'm not saying it was Hadjar's fault, by Alonso, there were multiple instances of drivers either making errors that let someone else go by or the tyres failing on you. It wasn't completely easy for someone like Sainz to hold off a faster Kimi Antonelli behind. Yet he was able to do that with relative ease. There was seemingly that sort of 1.5 second gap between Sainz and Antonelli for much of this race, almost to the point where he pulls away a little bit before getting drawn back thanks to that damage. But yeah, I thought he managed this brilliantly well. He wasn't confident going into this weekend. He thought that the way in which the Qatar circuit is with these sort of medium speed corners, that Williams have been struggling on those corners all year, and this might be one of their tougher tracks. And I'm sure he will be first in line to say, I'm happy with how wrong I was. 15 very valuable points, kind of puts, it was kind of done anyway, but that puts, that ices 5th place for them in the championship quite comfortably at this point, clear of the rest of sort of 6th down to 9th, which is really close. So well done to Williams for a good turnaround in this last year of the regulations. And Carlos Sainz has played a really big role in that. What about Mercedes, Sam? Because Antonelli was kind of trying to put the pressure on Carlos Sainz for much of this Grand Prix. Looked like he was really using those tyres in the last 10 laps. And maybe that's ultimately what's cost him a couple of points here.
It's a really tricky one to evaluate from Mercedes' point of view, because start didn't go well for George Russell in particular. Gets swallowed up actually by Kimi Antonelli, who gets in front of him very early on. And he's never really a presence again towards the front of the field. He gets caught up badly in the way that the double stacking has to work in the pit stops. It ends up causing him to fall properly into the pack of Fernando Alonso. And it just means that he's essentially neutralized. He's sit there with Charles Leclerc from the majority of the Grand Prix. And look, when you're driving around next to that Ferrari, it means that you're not having a very good day at the moment. Kimi Antonelli, on the other hand, he had some real highs and he had some difficult moments. I think his start was fantastic. He got himself into a place where he really could challenge. And in an alternate universe, it's Kimi Antonelli who's on that podium. And I think realistically, the Mercedes probably should have had the pace to be on the podium if Carlos Sainz is making that happen. But negatives for Kimi Antonelli, that he's not able to keep up with Carlos Sainz and Williams at a track which Williams themselves have stated that this was going to be their most difficult weekend of the whole season, with the way that they build their car and the way the track focuses on such heavy downforce through these high-speed corners. I did think that Antonelli over the course of the race would have been able to close down Carlos Sainz, although it is incredibly difficult to overtake here. And then we've seen this before with Kimi. He is looking so good, and then he burns through his tyres faster than people around him, and it costs him. And I do think that was probably the reason why he had that kind of turn 9, turn 10 double wobble that put him outside of the track limits and allows Norris to come through. He drops down to 5th place rather than challenging Sainz actually for the podium. So starts well, and as the race goes on, it tapers off.
Oh, Harry, I've just learned from a really reliable source, I think it was GP Lambiasi, Kimi Antonelli actually let him through.
I know, that's what the streets were saying.
Yeah.
The amount of posts on social media or on X, I should say, about that, and that have then had to walk themselves back once they've actually seen the replay.
F1-uxed.
Yeah, F1-uxed. Passions run high, don't they, in Formula One sometimes?
They really do.
Yeah, that wobble. It was a clear mistake from Antonelli. Martin Brundle, Karine Chandler on Sky sort of walked us through the replay, and he gets a first wobble and then a second wobble because he's all out of position.
Wobble.
Yeah, exactly.
Base.
Maybe not. But yeah, so for Mercedes, I think missed opportunity here today because, for Antonelli, that podium was potentially on towards the end, especially with the damage that was going to be hampering Sainz. For Russell, I mean, his race just unraveled so quickly. Once he had that mistake at the start where he lost at least 2 places, I think, and then we had the first safety car pit stop where he lost even more places. It was just kind of game over for him from there. So, if we say Antonelli had potential pace to get on the podium, I think Russell definitely did. So, I think they'll rue that. Well, not really much of an error from Mercedes' part, just rue a race not going their way.
Yeah, it didn't take much for a race to be derailed here, and Mercedes is kind of proof of that. Because of how difficult it was to make these overtakes happen, you had, Antonelli lose a spot in the pits, and you had Russell have a bad start. And that's all it took for Mercedes to be quite a few positions, I would say, off of what was their potential. And that could be said for maybe the entire midfield. After you get through the McLaren's and Max Verstappen, I'm not sure pretty much anyone else actually got to show how quick they were. It was just one long DRS train to start, and then as soon as the tyres went off, a slightly more than DRS train. But Mercedes, George Russell was just stuck all day, and part of that is down to the start. But I don't think we ever saw, apart from those last 2 laps where he didn't have Hadjar in front of him, I don't think we actually ever saw what he could have done. He had the one opportunity, or the half opportunity, around the outside of Hadjar earlier on in the race. But outside of that, I just don't ever really remember seeing him in clean air.
It tells you the poor combination of having tyres that wear out so quick you need a mandatory 2-stop and a track where you can't do literally any wheel-to-wheel racing.
Well, shall we move on to Driver of the Day?
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
Sam, it was Max Verstappen who took the popular vote. Are you agreeing with them or offering up a different name?
I'm going Oscar Piastri. That win was lost, not through his own doing, but through the team's cowardice. You heard me. Oof. And I feel like they did him dirty. And he was the best driver out there on the racetrack, by far the fastest, by far the most competitive, cut through the traffic, the minor traffic that he had to get through. That overtake on Antonelli, ruthless, got the job done immediately. And he closed that gap down to Max Verstappen incredibly fast. Unfortunately, just with the way the tyres are and the way the track is, it was just never going to be enough after their team blunder.
Harry?
I'm going to agree with the popular vote. I'll go for Verstappen. I think Piastri is a very, very fair shout. Carlos Sainz is also another one. But you knew that this was going to be a good day for Verstappen because we heard from him once, and that was about it. He didn't say a word. And if you compare that to the rest of the weekend, where he was just on a pogo stick, apparently bouncing around, I think it was always destined to be a good day. He did everything he needed to. Obviously, the strategy call made it for him, but Verstappen still had to execute it, and he had some really excellent pace out there. So I'll go Verstappen.
I can barely separate the podium on this. I think all 3 of them are very valid shouts for different reasons. I ended up with Oscar Piastri as well, Sam, because I do feel like he was robbed of this victory. And to be that much better than Lando Norris on such an important weekend, that says a lot about his character and how he was able to bounce back. But equally, if you want to give this to Verstappen, if you want to give this to Carlos Sainz, very valid, very valid. What about worst driver of the day?
Get in the bin, worst driver of the day. Bin, worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Harry, who have you got?
I'm going to give it to Pierre Gasly because even though he literally made this race, you still ran Hulkenberg off the road.
It's an interesting point of view. Okay.
Yeah.
Bear that in mind.
Sam?
Sausage army, get ready. We'll take this man down. Further blasphemy. It's definitely not Pierre Gasly. It's Nico Hulkenberg. because whilst he ran around the outside, my guy just drove straight into a car, which clearly left plenty of room for him to drive into. So that was poor.
I'm going with Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, it's a good agree, Sam.
So, Jeremy, we have 2 targets.
I am part of the bacon army.
Glizzy's at the ready.
Yeah, that there wasn't much in the way of bad racing because there wasn't much racing to actually review. So I feel like it had to be someone who either caused an incident or gave themselves a penalty, which narrowed it down to a few names. And of
Lance
course,
Stroll is up there.
Lance Stroll gave himself a penalty through speeding through the pit lane. Ocon had a start line infringement and he got a penalty. But yeah, I might put the incident on Gasly rather than Hulkenberg. So I'm going to go with Gasly.
No hot dogs for you ever again, boys.
Oh, I really like hot dogs. Big brain Strat.
Game over for you.
Bob, we're going to need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
Sam, what have you got?
Now, I got a lot of messages in Discord being like, oh, slam dunk on Big Brain, slam dunk, it's going to be McLaren. I'm going to leave that one. I'm going to leave it. I had to go digging for this because I wanted to make sure that I was going to do some accusations correctly. Why is Lance Stroll the only man that can't make it to the right lap to pit? He did have a puncture, nothing wrong with the car, just couldn't keep the tyres alive enough to get to the same pit lap as everyone else, which means he had to stop 3 times instead of 2. And then he spared in the pit lane, getting a penalty. So for me, that's the big Strat.
Yeah, I've got no idea why he did that. I don't know whether it was strategic to try and help out Fernando Alonso, whether it was to literally just try something different because he was in no man's land. But yeah, he was one of the very few drivers to pit 3 times. He also tried the fastest, not that it would have got him a point. He tried the fastest lap. And I think he was fastest in the middle sector. And then we didn't see the purple next to his name, which meant that final sector can't have gone brilliantly well. Harry, your big brain Strat.
I am torn. I mean, again, I feel like the McLaren one is so stupid. It's almost like not worthy of this award. I'm torn between Esteban Ocon and Haas not pitting him, then him getting a penalty and having to pit again, all under one safety car. I'm going to go for Fernando Alonso backing the entirety of the field up, then sodding off, it working out perfectly, then spinning, losing 2 places, finishing 1 place above where he started in the end.
Sounds about right.
Perfect execution of a race, yes?
Sure.
I reckon that's 2-0 Aston Martin right there.
The Ocon one is a good shout because I was trying to understand what happened here. So I feel like he came into the pits on the same lap as everyone else did, lap 7. And then he also comes in on lap 8 as well. And my instinct here is they served the 5-second time penalty, knew they did it incorrectly, so did it again the second time. This hasn't been confirmed or anything. I'm just guessing. I feel like would make sense as to why that would happen.
I thought Ocon didn't pit because he was in front of Verstappen briefly.
Yeah, he was.
He was, yeah. I thought he came in on lap 8 and then lap 9, but I could be wrong.
Sorry, you said 7 and 8.
Yes, my bad.
8 and 9, yeah.
I could be wrong on that, by the way. It might have just been once, but...
I've got real beef with F1 teams that can't time their penalties properly. Like,
it's weird.
How do they keep getting this wrong? How do you keep getting it wrong? Just time it to 5.5 seconds and accept that you're going to lose some time rather than another 5 seconds, take a penalty.
Because he started on the medium tyres, then came into the pits, was on hards for, I think, 1 lap, and then came back into the pits again for medium tyres. So I feel like, yeah, maybe they did try and serve the penalty and then didn't do it correctly, which is why they were under investigation, but then it disappeared because they did it right the second time round.
On the Ocon penalty, by the way, it came up on the screen as like moving before signal. Doesn't normally just say false start.
Yeah, it does say false start.
That? Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just the world we live in now, isn't it, really? For some reason. Yeah.
Just confusing you to be confusing.
I'll go with the McLaren strategy because, again, I don't know what this race would have looked like if that didn't happen. And I don't want to imagine it. Already alluded to before the break was Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso's day. Now, it looked like he was very much managing his tyres in that first stint to the point where he was leading a very long DRS train. And then towards the end of the stint, he decided, okay, now I might just go off into the distance to create a gap. Very good strategy, Harry, apart from the bit where he spun.
Yeah, it was all going so well. As Fernando Alonso, head of the fan club, I'm maintaining it was just he was doing it for style points and he was bored. But yeah,
World Championship points pretty worth a bit more though.
Style points way more important in Fernando Alonso's world apparently. But it wasn't great from Fernando that one. He was on for a good result. I think this is. We'll get into my bold prediction, but I think Aston Martin were pretty strong here this weekend and probably have not maximised that somewhat. But the race was going as well as I think it could have been for Alonso. He obviously gained at the start and then did his backing up trick, which he loves to do now. But it's like the most Fernando Alonso thing ever. Why bother trying to go after cars that you can't catch? Just back everyone else up and then wear their tyres out and then just run off. So up until the spin, it was going really well. He obviously still finished one place above where he started, but it could have been a lot more. So they'll be disappointed in that. But I, quite frankly, am not sure Alonso cares that much at the moment. So yeah.
I think, Sam, it was a pretty good strategy until it wasn't. Like, it was very effective in that he knew Hadjar behind him, I think might have been the slowest car in a straight line. We saw yesterday in qualifying, he was a demon in the middle sector, which of course means you are going to give up something in a straight line. And he knew that, managed for 2/3 of that first stint until deciding, okay, I don't want to be undercut. I don't want to be in a position where it's close at the pit stops. Of course, he couldn't be undercut. Did that very effectively. And it was only then the spin that sort of undid his day, but not horribly so.
This is vintage Fernando Alonso. Display the meme of Monaco track map where there's like 5 cars on their road and Alonso has a train of like 15 cars stuck behind him. He's been doing this since I was born, and that is only 30 years ago, for those who are very confused. That's right. He's been around a long time. He's been deploying this strategy a long time. And Fernando Alonso's savvy in the sense that he knows who and where and when he should be fighting for places. There's no point chasing down Max Verstappen. There's no point chasing down 2 McLaren's. His race at best is what, 5th or 6th if the race is smooth sailing. And he was on track for a very, very strong finish. The spin cost him. And it's a shame. It's a shame that it did cost him because it did feel like he could have been on for some really strong points. Aston Martin need those points because in this fight that they're having with the RB team, in the fight they've got with Haas behind them, of course, and Sauber around them, picking up 8-10 points will be really beneficial for them. He's let that slide. But fortunately, it's come at a time where every other midfield team basically dropped the ball at the same time. And it was a game of who could drop the ball the least. Aston Martin still managed to do pretty well because of Alonso's efforts.
Yeah, looking at that Constructors' Championship, so Aston Martin 7 points clear of Haas. Alonso by himself this weekend got 8 points even after the spin, so that has helped them out versus Haas. And of course, Hadjar's tyre going boom with 2 laps to go, boom, has very much hurt. No, doom. It's very much hurting because there's 12 points separating Racing Bulls and then Aston Martin behind them. So Racing Bulls still the favourite there, but could have been a lot more comfortable going to Abu Dhabi than what it was. What else in the midfield? Charles Leclerc got P8. That's a midfield car now, Sam.
Yeah, I was literally thinking this while we were watching the race. Ferrari is a midfield car. 1 driver in the points, 1 driver out of it. And I think he's lucky to get P8, if I'm totally honest, because I don't think it looked like it was going his way. It didn't look like a total dog or a pig to drive by the sense that we never saw him. He didn't run wide multiple times in 1 lap and he managed to finish the race. But as was shared in our group chat, the way that his engineer is having to encourage him because he's the fastest in 1 corner at 1 point of the race tells you just how far this Ferrari has sunk. P8's really solid for this Ferrari after how bad the weekend's been.
It's depressing. He's talking about, like, this is in particular after qualifying, but he's talking about like the level of risk he needs to go to in these qualifying sessions where, of course, he spins because he is having to give 100% of the car to finish 8th or 9th. And it's just so demoralizing to hear that because Charles Leclerc has had a few mistakes in qualifying before. It's usually been because he's chasing pole, not 8th or 9th. I mean, he takes 4 points here, Harry. Hamilton, of course, 12th place, so doesn't score at all. There's no way to prove or disprove this, but I think in Hamilton's, how many year career? 18-year career now, 19 seasons. Has he ever been featured less on a broadcast than today?
Honestly, potentially, no. Not at all. I barely saw him. Did you see him at all?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, normally, if he doesn't qualify well or has a bad session, whatever, he's fighting his way back through, but he's just stuck here. Yeah,
he's stuck, and he loses out on the pit stops. Another clip that I shared to the podcast group chat was him exclaiming mid pit stop how poorly his race is going. He doesn't use the word poorly; he uses a different word beginning with S. Terrible day, terrible weekend for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc. Honestly, 4 points that car doesn't deserve 4 points. I don't think it deserved any points. So they're lucky to even come away with that.
I'm just doing some maths on the fly here a second. Oh no. I think Ferrari have lost third in the championship.
Oh, gee, mate.
They're 44 behind Red Bull.
Cancel the Abu Dhabi upgrade, boys. It's not going to be
Reinstate the fastest lap. 44 is possible. Come on.
Wait, Lewis Hamilton could win twice in the same Grand Prix. Surely they believe that's going to happen.
Ferrari. We live in hope that next year might give you something different. The stat earlier on today as well, that if Leclerc doesn't win in Abu Dhabi, it will be 4 out of 7 seasons at Ferrari winless.
This is a very, very painful year to be a Ferrari fan. You know the famous phrase, you never see someone sad in a Ferrari? Look at those two men.
Man doesn't know Leclerc exists.
Well, someone posted earlier on that the happiest those two have been in a Ferrari this year is in that Lego car in Miami.
A car that works.
Yeah. Surprised they haven't tried to use it, yeah.
That's what John Elking's talking about. He thinks that's the Ferrari.
That looked great on track. What are these people talking about?
They were so happy.
They were flying along.
The engineers put it together really well.
Anything else from the midfield catch your eye, Sam?
No, we didn't see any of it. It was boring.
The Alonso spin that we've just referred to, by the way, there was not a lot of action going on track. It took us how many minutes to see it happen?
Honestly, I could have seen it now. It wouldn't have made any difference. There was a moment, I think, between Hadjar and Russell.
Yeah. I'm watching the timing tower going, this would be great to watch, wouldn't it?
And what annoyed me, at the start of the Sky broadcast, they had the audacity to throw up an advert that goes, and don't forget to scan the QR code where you can join Sky's Battle channel in case you can watch all the wheel-to-wheel action that you might not catch on the main broadcast. What else was happening that you couldn't show us? What else was going on?
Side note on broadcasting, by the way, the timing tower, when it was so obvious that the gap we were all watching was the McLaren to the Alonso queue, why did it take so long to throw out that time?
I'm doing mental arithmetic.
How much mental math?
No idea. There was one incident in the midfield, and that was quite early on between Pierre Gasly and Nico Hulkenberg that, of course, caused the safety car that has given us so much to talk about on this review. Harry, how did you see it?
Well,
he didn't.
Because his eyes shut, I think.
Sausages in the eyes.
You don't want that, do you, son?
That's Patreon content.
It really isn't.
As already mentioned, I think Pierre Gasly was at fault for this one. We've seen a few incidents at that corner previously where cars have been sort of nerfed off or cars have come together. It's sort of the way that corner rolls through. It's slightly banked as well, but it means that they sort of connect a bit on the exit. I'm with Hulkenberg on this one. He gave him all the room on the inside here, and Gasly's run into him. So I'm putting it on Gasly. I'm saying it's kind of a racing incident, but if I'm going to put blame on someone, I'm going to put it on Gasly. So it was just a bit clumsy in the end, wasn't it? And with Hulkenberg on soft tyres, it was clear he had more grip. Hence why he was even able to go around the outside. Like, we didn't see that again this race, did we? Maybe?
Apart from the Russell attempt.
Apart from the Russell attempt, yeah. So, I'd maybe get in retrospect, Gasly might have let that one go, but it ruined both their races in the end. So
this discussion, by the way, has just reminded me of this very corner last year, Kevin Magnussen getting past Alex Albon and him going off, and us creating Keith Magnussen, who just wants his kids in the back to shut up.
Oh, miss you, Keith.
Yeah. I saw it the same way as you did, Harry. But Sam, based on your worst driver of the day vote, I think you're on the other side of this.
I don't know what you're not seeing. My guy is turning full to the right. He has the corner. Hulkenberg is trying around the outside and he's never fully alongside until almost the point they make contact. There is room left on the outside. I'm watching the replay right now. There is space for a car to be there. Hulkenberg comes across at the last moment as he starts to get the grip on the exit. I think Gasly's driving the racing line. I think Hulkenberg comes across him. For me, this is on Hulk. He's got the better tyres. He should have sat back and waited. I think Gasly is right to try and hold on because with how difficult it is to overtake around here, holding someone off once is enough to hold them off for the whole Grand Prix. They might not get another chance. So I think it was a racing instinct if I'm going to have to actually put my true verdict out there. But I think it's ever so slightly more on Hulk than it is Gasly.
Do you think the stewards, obviously Gasly was still in the race after the incident happened, so he was there to be penalised if they wanted to.
That's what they decided.
And they decided not to. Does that imply that they maybe thought this was more on Hulkenberg and the DNF was penalty enough? Even if that's not the right way to judge it, is that maybe the way they saw it?
We've seen them do that before, where they think the reaction of the accident is enough punishment for what happened. No, I think they saw this as a racing instinct. I do truly believe that's probably really the right call, actually. I think it is a racing instinct. It was scruffy from both drivers. But I do think that I put this one ever so slightly more on Hulk.
Fair enough. Before we move on to moment of the race, permission for a hot take?
Yeah, please do so. We need one today.
This is the worst track on the calendar.
There you go. I'm not sure it's hot. I'm not sure it's hot.
Given we've got, I don't particularly like Jeddah. I don't like Abu Dhabi. I don't like Monaco personally. I think this is the worst one on the calendar.
Everything else has something going for it. Jeddah is just chaos amplified. And you know what? I'm fine. Monaco has got at least the historic cultural effect of F1 being there for so long. And Abu Dhabi, at least you can make an overtake. At least you see someone get past someone and the pit lane goes out on the racetrack, which is kind of cool.
It's a cool quali lap, but it's for motorcycles.
You hate anything that is a gimmick.
That tunnel under the pit lane exit. What has that given us since 2009? Nothing.
Hope.
Absolutely. Podium.
Every year, I hope someone crashes in the tunnel.
Never gonna happen.
We've seen some bad F1 drivers in our time, and none of them have done it. It's not happening.
What, a single one has even grazed the wall.
Oh. Yeah, this track's for motorcycles, and I don't even mean that disparagingly. I think this is probably pretty good.
The reason it was built.
Yeah, right. And qualifying, I thought it was good. It is entertaining to see these cars go at 100% around this track. But for actual racing, which is why we're here, it doesn't work. It flat out doesn't work.
Even F2 was bad. Even F2 was dull.
Yeah. Well, Harry, the reason I'm annoyed about this, I think more than anything, is that the last two races of the season are here in Abu Dhabi. There are probably going to be quite a lot of eyeballs on what's happening that aren't usually on F1 based on this championship still being alive. 3 drivers going into the last race of the season with a shot for the first time in 15 years. And this is the way we greet potential new customers, is this race. That's why I hate it.
Well, and exactly. And at least McLaren gave us something for this race. The sprint yesterday. What a load of crock that was. That was awful. I know we don't like sprints anyway, but it's a terrible track for Formula One. And annoying thing is, like many of these, new tracks that we have built in the Middle East, like Bahrain, for example, Abu Dhabi, so many different layout options we can choose from, and we're not. We're just using the same one. Why?
I'm old enough to remember when this was only going to be temporary and we were going to get a new circuit in Qatar.
Yeah. When is that done? When's that coming?
20,000 and never.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Can't wait. Perfect.
God. Shall we review our bold predictions, see if anything has changed? Sam, what was your bold prediction?
I said that Lando Norris would not finish in the top 5 in both the sprint and the race. And guess what? He did it in both.
He did. He had a worse weekend than he's had in quite a while, I would say, but not quite as bad as you would have needed for your bold prediction.
Unfortunately.
Don't worry, I think mine was worse. I thought Haas would be all right here this weekend for some reason. I've had a stinker. Old man's up.
Say was yours?
I was right. I said that Behrman would be top 7 in both races.
What? Behrman was having a solid day as well until he apparently drove over the other Haas car in the pit lane. I still don't know what he was.
Well, they never showed us. I've got a feeling that they didn't have the rear left tyre on, and that's why it was sort of bouncing in the air. And he just drove off. See you later, guys.
Is that why he got the stop go?
It seems unfair.
Seems harsh, isn't it? Green light, go. Oh, I can't. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and then just promptly retired after that. So I was, I've been close on a few of these this season. I wasn't close with that one. Harry?
One more, Ben. You can do it.
I said that Aston Martin would be in the top 5 in one of the races, and
No.
You know what?
Not bad.
Happened. I mean, Alonso was P4 in the sprint quali, wasn't he? So
it seems to be a bit of a repeat of these, particularly the sprint weekends, where Aston Martin look brilliant to start things off. And they don't end up horrible, but they kind of come back to the mean a little bit. But
yeah, never mind.
I think that was a solid shout. We've got one more opportunity for bold predictions, of course, that will come on Wednesday, our preview episode for Abu Dhabi. It's time for Moment of the Race. Sam, what is yours?
What is mine? It's quite hard to pick one where there were so few. So I am going to go for Lando Norris sounding a little bit worried over the radio, where his engineer is desperately telling him to say, "You're doing the thing again with the accelerator, Lando. Can you stop doing the thing?" I don't know how. I can't. I need help. I can't. And you know what? Heart goes out to him at that point. His championship's flashing before his eyes. I just need some help, please. I've got nothing left. So yeah, that's quite amusing. That is, I'm picking out the weakest pile at the moment the race is going in.
Harry?
Mine is Sky F1 specific, so apologies for those who don't hear that commentary. But David Croft, main commentator, realising on lap 39 that Verstappen might be in the pound seat here. I was like, are you having a bubble, son?
You can see the penny drop as well, can't you? You hear it where he goes, hang on a minute.
Arthur Brunner's like, yeah.
100% yes!
I've been saying this for 20 laps.
What are you talking about, man?
Is he the favourite here? Yeah, maybe.
Use your brain, David.
Maybe you yell at the TV.
Oh.
It's like Changran shakes a cloud.
Streaming us watching the race, just getting annoyed at David Croft.
I forgot how much I annoyed me as well. Cheers.
Thanks for that. Stress.
My moment of the race was Carlos Sainz trying to hold off Antonelli and Norris for the last 5 laps, especially because I know it took a bit of damage to get some intrigue, but Carlos Sainz wasn't sure about whether he'd have the pace in those last 5 laps with that damage to hold them off. I thought it was quite intriguing to see, quite entertaining, and Carlos Sainz being able to hold him off on the 4-year anniversary of Frank Williams passing as well. So it was a lovely moment, a lovely podium, but a nice fight to get there. It wasn't easy.
It was capped off by David Croft explaining that Carlos Sainz has invented slipstreaming behind him, which I thought was expert analysis.
He has, which, give him credit for that.
Well done, Carlos.